just starting. Welcome. We are very excited to be here on the World Business Angel Forum's next Global Women Leaders Summit. And we all feel very engaged with this committee's webinars, as we have all found very insightful deliverables that have affected and that have helped us to date. So I'm very much hoping that in this webinar, we'll be able to cross the messages on the services sector, how it's transforming, how it has been impacted, and what are the best examples going forward to deal with it in the best capacity. And we are very happy to receive, as I mentioned, the questions from panelists as well. To start, I would very much like to welcome each and every one of our panelists. And I would like to give the word to Mary Christie Ockley, who is very influential in a number of global organizations. And as I asked Mary to elaborate a bit more on these organizations before she starts with her keynote speech. Thank you very much, Mary, for being with us.
Thank you for giving me the floor and to organize this virtual meeting. So I have my own business. I'm working in numerical simulation world in engineering, doing services and selling software, mainly in fluid mechanics. I'm also president of the World Business Women Business Owners, and since 2 years from now. And we are supposed to have our Congress in Istanbul in November, but we don't know yet if it will be confirmed or not. We should decide this month. It's an association which exists since 1945 and which was set up by a French woman. It became the World Association in 1957. And we are now on the 5 continents. We are more than 120 countries and more than 500,000 members. I'm also involved in French, how to say that, employers union. And I'm in charge of education, training and competencies for this organization, and I'm sitting on the executive board. I was previously vice president of the International Commission, and now I'm president of the education, training and competencies. And I have some others in the aeronautics sector. I'm also president of a cluster and different association in my professional world.
Thank you very much, Mary, for this brief introduction. If okay, I would like to give the word to our panelists as well, to give a bit of introduction on themselves too. And then I will come back to you, Mary, for your speech. Just one note, if I may share, Swati Mandela couldn't make it today, our head of the Global Women Leaders Committee within World Business Angel Forum. It's mainly because she had a loss in her family, her aunt, and we share our condolences with her. She had to be with the family, which we very well understand. She's been very influential in giving this committee and also bringing World Business Angel Forum a focus on women empowerment. And I'm so lucky that it works, and we are now with this very strong and very capable woman, and we bring their messages to our investors and our entrepreneurs around the world, how to stand tight in COVID and how to bring their best and how to move the space and how to make opportunities out of this even. So with that message, I want to give the word to introduce themselves to Asma, Alexa, and Daniela. Then I'll come back to you, Mary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Denise. So my name is Asma Bashir. I'm a legal professional. I've been in the legal services industry for over 20 years. I offer both legal advice and consultancy services to large corporate companies, to SME startups, investors, and the ultra high net worth. So I have a varied client base, as well as being an investor directly myself. We offer advice, in the world of global mobility, international expansion, contracts, etc., to countries worldwide. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra Lund. I have kind of two main competencies, I would like to say. I have a company that provides high net worth individuals and family businesses and family offices with advice when it comes to the succession planning, which is a very kind of sensitive issue and often something that you want to do on a personal level. And I'm also in the event organizing space where, again, for high net worth individuals, I organize very bespoke events. So that is also an area, obviously, that has been very, very much hit by COVID. So I'm very much looking forward to sharing my ideas and your insight, listening to your insights on this panel.
Daniela? You're muted yet, Daniela.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, allow me to congratulate you for this great event that you've organized. And I'm very happy to be here with you and with the entire Global Women Leaders Committee. Also very unfortunate that Swati cannot be with us today. So all of our regards to her and condolences as well. And I'm looking forward to this insightful seminar.
We too, really, us too. And therefore, I would like to recognize and thank another person who is on the background, but who has been very influential actually in organizing this. It was her, thanks to Malak, that this has been so efficiently managed. Malak, thank you. Thank you very much. And now I give the word to Mary. Mary, we're really looking forward to hearing your key points, and we will then take it from there. Thank you.
Okay. So, first of all, I have to say that the impact of service in industry is not so easy to find information about that subject. But let's start with situation in the coronavirus crisis has got us all thinking. Lockdown was a difficult time when we were able to step back, and many of us realized that we can no longer live as we used to. Of course, in the short term, this may be thought of as a sweet dream, but maybe not. Pandemics deepen and accentuate all existing inequalities. In turn, these inequalities determine which population groups are affected first, the severity of the consequences and the extent of the efforts required for recovery. The COVID-19 pandemic and its social and economic consequences have created a global crisis unprecedented in the history. The scale and complexity of which requires the mobilization of the whole society. However, such mobilization, whether at the national or international level, will be considerably weakened if it does not take into account how inequalities have made all members of society more vulnerable to the impact of crisis, or if past policies are simply replicated without taking advantage of the situation to rebuild more equal, inclusive, and resilient societies. If I say so, it's because we are members of the women committees, and it's an important fact. The idiom crisis in Chinese means crisis, but also opportunities. The economic crisis is affecting all sectors, but unevenly sectors related to health, pharmaceutical industry, agriculture, food chain companies are largely involved, while the automotive, aeronautics, oil industry have almost come to a standstill and have great difficulty to restart. But what about services? There are those related to the first sectors that have been maintained during the crisis, on which are more, I would say, personal services, often women activities with less remunerative activities, and the second part, services to industry, in which we will find, of course, the less remunerative cleanliness, but more often services with high added value, and especially services in the digital sector, or which are or will have to be increasingly digitized, like banks, insurance companies, for example, but also industrial company, of course, who needs to take into account intelligence, artificial intelligence, or robotization and so on. Working at home has shown the urgent need for digitalization. Many companies were not ready and had to react urgently to allow their teams to continue working. I can give the example of France, but I'm sure it's true everywhere in the world. Robotization and artificial intelligence, which were beginning to take hold in industrial sectors, are becoming a necessity for the future of countries. The development of telemedicine, still in its infancy before the crisis, has shown that it could be a response to bring the patient closer to the doctor, whatever the context or geographical location, in very isolated areas, for example. As I was saying, not all service sectors have been impacted in the same way. We have seen how the GAFA have been present, whether it is for the use of internet as a work tool, more fun with social networks to keep in touch with family, distant friends, having online concerts organized by famous musicians, singers, or the delivery of products, with the undisputed leadership of Amazon, but also local structure like Cdiscount in France. The small non-food businesses strongly impacted and have had to develop, for those who had not already done so, an activity via a website. Even in catering industry has changed its habits with the use of QR codes to avoid the use of paper menus, order taking via smartphone. The tourism sector must also be rethought. Museums, amusement parks have developed virtual tours, online visits during the confinement, but no doubt that this also opened a new way of appropriating culture with more services, always with more services. One area that I know well, numerical simulation, has been strongly impacted because most industries were at a standstill. The health crisis, the implementation of home working have highlighted the need to work in a collaborative way, to give access to data from different geographical locations. On personal viewpoint, I was starting to offer a new concept of numerical simulation platform. This problem was pointed out by certain of our customers who were aiming to continue working with us, but were stopped by a lack of access to their technical data. So what impact has the COVID-19 pandemic on the activity of digital service companies? This is a question that in extenso finance and transmission attempted to answer, sharing the results of a survey of 87 companies in this sector. They done it on 13th of May. The majority of them expect growth within 3 years. Also, 70% of them also expect a decrease in turnover in 2020. 87 digital services companies responded to a study on the impacts of COVID-19, conducted also by digital and IT team of this consulting firm. This was an opportunity to learn that the crisis has unfortunately not spared these players, 93.1% of which are anticipating negative consequences on the activity of their clients. Unsurprisingly, the number of signatures of new prospects in the midst of period of containment is expected to fall by 90% of those surveyed. Indicators will be in red in 2020. In this particular context, only 3 out of 10 NSEs expect fiscal 2020 to be stable or slightly up, thanks in particular to a dynamic first quarter. Over the longer term, optimism is in order. 70.5% of respondents expect a positive trend over the next 3 years, a rate that rises to 80% for companies with revenue of more than 10 million euros. Despite the COVID-19 crisis, the NSE sector should resist better compared to other sectors of the economy, especially since the context is pushing organizations to accelerate their digital transformation. The director of In Extenso Finance and Transmission noted in parallel that the companies concerned remain wary of investment of their consultants. As a result, 88.5% of them should reduce their recruitment in the coming months and even freeze hiring in 60% of cases. Getting support to keep up. For employees already in post, the COVID-19 crisis was an opportunity to experiment with short-time working, with home working, which 86.2% of NSEs have considered using. In France, among those who took action, 69.6% obtained confirmation of state-guaranteed loans, which are called PGE in France. 88.5% of respondents said they were satisfied with the support of their banking partners, enough to get through the crisis with their cash flow intact. It has been true in digital economy, in numerical simulation, in those sectors, but it was far from true for industrial activities. A lot of SMEs didn't get these state guarantee loans, and a lot of SMEs should. In France also, I'm referring to France because I don't have all the information from other countries, but I think it's quite similar in all parts of the world. But a lot of companies are already started to get bankrupt, but could do it after holiday time in September. In France, we had what we call partial unemployment and short-time working measures, which were a lot used by service company, because it's much more easy, of course, when you do consultancy, when you do service, except those who need to be physically on site, like security or cleaning and such service activities. But for the others, like also in tourism and so on, it was possible to keep people working from their home. And it has been really a major shock absorber for companies in that sector. However, this doesn't prevent 48% of the organizations concerned from facing late payments from their clients. The health crisis has also shown the need for fast and efficient internet access for everyone, the fragility of some traditional companies. In the particular context that we are currently experiencing, the social and solidarity economy through its responsiveness and the solidarity that it implements constitutes one of the strong responses to the consequences of crisis. But beyond that, its values and practices can also inspire the necessity of reform of economic regulations and encourage public authorities, businesses, and citizens to move towards a more solidarity-based, fairer, and more responsible economy. The COVID-19 crisis and its psychological effects on each of us will undoubtedly lead to changes in the behavior of consumers, employees and investors, especially since the climate emergency is still with us. I could not conclude my talk without mentioning the crucial role and situation of women during the sanitary and economic crisis. It therefore has an essential role to play in the recovery of our economy and the responses to be made to the major environmental and social challenges that await us. Because everywhere in the world, and this is where my view as world president of Women Entrepreneurs comes into play, it's a factor that in the development of territories through the creation of local jobs that cannot be relocated, but also the emancipation of women. Majority of women are in lower paid sectors. In addition to pay inequalities, women are more affected by part-time employment or less valued jobs, but also women have two works, one in their company and one at home. And in Women Entrepreneurs told us, we made a small survey internally, but they all told us they had to take care about their company, of course, but they also had to take care, even they are entrepreneurs, but often they had to take care about family problem and children problem when they were at home. As a result, women remain much more fragile from an economic point of view. I would not like to mention the fact that they are virtually absent from the major decision-making bodies in this area. Christine Lagarde being the exception as former managing director of the International Monetary Fund and current president of the European Central Bank. What weight will they have tomorrow when it comes to rebuilding everything? Women are working mainly in Europe in services sectors, which are directly or indirectly affected by the crisis. According to a barometer published by employers organization, 70% of the members estimate that the situation of women in governance and economy will deteriorate after coronavirus crisis. Published in the manifesto entitled When the Crisis Points the Fingers at the Specificities of Female Entrepreneurship, the Women Entrepreneurs, FCE in France, warn on the increasingly difficult condition in which they must run their businesses. It's particularly important to provide direct support to those in informal employment and to businesses run by women. Indeed, financial support should target enterprises that are run by women and are hard hit and enterprises in feminized sectors. This can take the form of subsidized and state-guaranteed loans and different measures or exemption from taxes and social security contribution. The new challenges in digital services are real opportunities for women. What was considered impossible a few months ago has been accelerated by the compelling need to survive economically and keep the link. Isn't said that it is discomfort that once become the most creative, that a war breeds economic creativity. And as President Emmanuel Macron said, it is a war that we had and we continue to fight. So it is together that we can succeed, as Europe has just done by signing this historic agreement to support Europe's recovery. This is our motto as FCEM, along with our motto, only we are invisible, together we are invisible. Thank you.
Mary, thank you. You have really concluded your talk in such a way that has given me a hope that we'll be able to use this time, as Mark Andreessen says, it's time to build, and maybe we'll be building totally new space from here. And we'll be able to kill the pain points that we have seen so far, right? Thank you. You really, I'm also very happy that you have highlighted some of the main challenges that we have observed as COVID started within the services sector, because this was one of the areas, and you have validated that with some figures, which I am really very appreciative of. Maybe just one thing to add before I give the word to our panelists. I've checked the numbers, how much services sector makes in the total GDP of globally. Globally, according to 2017 figures, is $145 trillion. And out of that, 65% is services. Is incredible. The level of industry and agriculture has been shifting, has been decreasing since 60s. So already services has been the main pile of where we make money, where we sustain, where we thrive. And we have already seen the shift that the services sector has been shifting from a sectoral focus, let's say saying financial services, banking, consultancy, and some others. Now we had already the trend that everything is XaaS, as the developers call it, everything as a service or anything as a service, because we've been using internet as the main platform to provide these services and reach higher crowds. So having shared that, I want to give the word to either Asma, Alex, or Alexandra or Daniela to kind of reflect a bit more on Mary's key messages, which I hope to summarize. Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the main messages was like the COVID is bringing a new culturalization, which was very important. And we've seen some very innovative things happening with respect to culturalization in a way. That's one of what I have taken with me. And you have also pointed out the financial illiquidity potentially coming as a bigger pain, where we have to take more precautions. So you have kind of warned us on that. And one of the final key messages was like how to deal with as women and as other entrepreneurs, now that we have some additional concerns like employee safety and others, given COVID, how to deal with that. So those three key messages I have taken. If you want to add, please do add. Otherwise, I'll give the word to our panelists.
Oh, it's great.
Well, I will start then. Thank you very much, Marie-Christine. There was something that you said at the beginning that struck me when I was preparing for this as well. It's the fact that it's very hard to find anything when you Google or you look for it about services, because it's such a broad term. So I think when we talk, we need to break it down in two groups, if you so want. And the way I did it for me is I have knowledge workers within the services sectors versus non-knowledge workers. So you'd have a consultancy company where you actually provide consultancy service versus a cleaning service that I think Marie-Christine mentioned, where the challenges of COVID have been tremendously different and in a way maybe even harder, because adaptation and agility has been much harder for someone. In my case, we all have become more digitalized when it comes to cleaning. How do you do that digitally? It is pretty much impossible. So I think we also have to define services in a way, because otherwise it will be very difficult to have a discussion. From my point of view, as I mentioned before, I work with bespoke families and family businesses, and I have tailor-made services for them, for high net worth individuals, where we mainly focus on challenges and solutions around succession planning and governance within those families. And these are often very, very personal issues, where I often act almost like a psychologist in a way, where it takes a very long time to build trust relationships. And until now, I was convinced, until COVID hit, I was personally convinced that this is something you have to do in person. I still believe that to a certain extent, of course, when things start opening up, we will need to, and we all crave as human beings, to have that physical interaction, because even moving your hands, everything, gestures, you lose certain layers when you are on a screen. Having said that, I am quite amazed how people do adjust, and I believe personally, I'm really curious to hear your opinion on this, Daniela, Asma, and also you, Christine, when it comes to what do you see in the service sector and in the knowledge worker service sector as the main macro challenges, and maybe also abilities? How can we take the best out of, make the best out of the situation? Christine, you had mentioned that, you know, it's almost impossible. Over 90% of new prospects won't be coming now. It will be very, very difficult to get new prospects. And I agree with that. But then my question is, isn't it better to take the ones you have already and really build a deep trust relationship with the clients that you have already in your portfolio, and really listen to them, be more agile, become more digitalized, obviously, but also realizing that within that adaptability, it also means that you need to realize where the boundaries of digitalization lie, and create that kind of balance where you bind your clients to you in a fantastic way. You realize also it becomes more personal in a way, because you have these deeper conversations with them, and but also realize where the boundaries are of the digitalization that we're living in right now.
It's really interesting, Daniela. Sorry, Alexandra, I'll say Daniela. So, I mean, I think obviously all of us have very different experiences and come from sort of different backgrounds. And my background, particularly being sort of more private practice and in the corporate sector, as well as ultra high net worth. I mean, I've been seeing a very different shift. And so when I've looked at some of the facts and figures that you've talked about here, I was looking at, and taking legal services aside, just the consultancy industry on its own is worth 160 billion, right? And if you look at the US, that sort of makes up a very sort of large number of what the consultancy service industry is about. And it was a few years ago, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years ago, we did this Parthenon report. So EY have this arm that they go out and they do an industry report on what the management consultancy sector looks like. And there were some staggering figures, you know, that they'd come back with as well in terms of what the value is. So as COVID has happened, what I've seen is a variation of impact to different types of services. So if you look at air travel as an example, people who need to travel abroad, who need to get visas, the travel industry, the services they provide on its knees completely, right? So impact has been huge in that area. Then you look at supporting the sort of the top level executives, and you look at supporting businesses that are high level, where they've got people, you know, based in different remote locations, with different countries. Suddenly lockdown happens, they need to be with their families. How do they then come out, and where do they go, and what do they do, and who do they go to? Because governments have shut down, so no one is communicating with each other, no one is being able to give you advice. So who do they go to? So obviously we've been pretty busy during this time, you know, and we've been able to, and I think that the reason why we've been busy is it's not been the bog standard advice that you give to people. It's been more strategic. It's been more, you know, kind of crisis management. How do you help people come out of crisis situations to be able to get to normality, or to be able to kind of, you know, put them at ease? Because emotionally, the trauma that people go through when they're in these types of situations is immense. So, for example, I can give you a client who was stuck. Well, we had a group of them, a large multinational company, offices around the world, senior CEO level, travels everywhere. He traveled, I think it was 2 weeks before the UK announced lockdown. He was stuck in Saudi Arabia, of all countries, where he was giving conferences. And then I think he traveled back to the UK 2 days before lockdown happened, and then back again. And so he was in Saudi Arabia when lockdown happened, and then suddenly Saudi Arabia announced nobody's leaving either. So you can imagine the issues that arose. You can't contact anybody. So the level of work we've had to do has been immense. And I think that what has been beneficial to us is we've seen, I would say, 20% increase in client needs, in client solutions, in services that we've had to offer. So on the one hand, we're assisting corporate clients with their crisis management. On the other hand, we're looking at people in other countries. So for example, if you look at China, it's been hit badly. There have been a lot of countries that are not allowing people coming in from China. So we've been helping ultra high net worth clients from China relocate completely with their families to different locations. So it's a completely different type of service being offered there. So we've seen quite a variation. And on the one hand, you know, where I feel that, you know, there's opportunity for you to pivot and to try and provide services that you think outside the box. So you're not kind of, if you're a business and you say, these are my services, this is what I do, right? And now a crisis has happened, therefore I can't go anywhere else because I now no longer have customers or clients to be able to support. I think that's quite difficult to kind of, you know, understand from my perspective, because you need to pivot, because then you look at your client base, you look at the opportunity that there is, you look at your own skill and capability within your teams, within yourself, and then you reinvent and you say, well, what else could I be doing to support those people? And I've seen other competitor firms say to clients, oh, I'm sorry, we can't assist because government departments are closed. We can't communicate with them. They, you know, you send an email, they say out of office, the phone lines have shut down, we can't support you. But there are ways to achieve those outcomes for people. I think it's times like this that you build trust with your clients, you build trust with the relationships that you've established. And I personally have had lots of positive experiences during COVID, not only just being able to help solutions for clients, but we've been able to charge fees, hefty fees that we probably wouldn't even charge for a whole year, leave alone one transaction. And what we've been able to do is use that extra income to be able to help those who are less fortunate to be able to kind of, you know, come out of the services industry. So on the one hand, I've been wearing the hat on the services side to be able to support the bigger clients. But on the other side, I've been able to get more involved with charitable institutions in different countries around the world, and to be able to offer a service to help those that actually are unfortunate and their livelihoods have been, you know, come to a standstill. So I think that's been a rewarding experience from my personal perspective, where you can, you know, capitalize on something, and but then at the same time find opportunity in something else to be able to give back and build other people in. So I don't see that, I personally, even in the past, there's been the 2008 crisis, I've been through different elements of different situations that have happened in the past. And I feel that, and I strongly believe, and I always mentor people and companies, either whether I've invested in them or whether they've come to me for mentorship, that you've really got to think outside the box. You've really got to think hard and find solutions that nobody else can find. How else would you differentiate yourself? You know, you can't just be the normal person. If you're in this industry, you've got to excel and you've got to stand out. So that's my personal experience.
I agree with you on that you have to think outside the box. The thing is, this is a very, the sentence as such is so tiring because people keep talking about it all the time, but I think very few actually do something. And I see here in the chat that a few people have said that you need to pivot, and I could not agree more with that. And I think that ability to be agile is something that is key. And when I say that, leaders, and I think especially us as women, in a way, we are lucky, I think, to have that. We're born with this kind of extra agility, because what, as well, Marie-Christine said, you know, we all have 2-3 jobs. We come home, we are the mothers, we are the spouses, and we live that role, and it's a job. We go to the office, we're entrepreneurs, we are mentors, we have so many different hats on, and we manage. But as leaders, I think it's very important to pause for a second, assess the situation, decide on it, and actually act on it. And knowing that you have that ability to, when the next crisis comes, learn from this one, so it's easier for you. Because what I see also a lot of companies doing, and I think that will lead to failure, is that exactly that mindset of, no, we can't help you, governance is closed, it's just too much, I can't handle it. You stop it. And then you manage maybe after a month or two to deal with this specific situation. But then again, you're just dealing with the now, you're not looking at the bigger picture. And you need to look at the bigger picture in order to be able to be sustainable and to bring value.
Thank you very much, Alex. Very well said also, Asma. I'd like to give the word to Daniela to reflect on the points that have been mentioned by Asma, Alexandra, and Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Well, many things have been said, and I have to say that I agree with all of them. And what is very important at this time, because we've been working very hard, not only as the International Chambers of Commerce, but also in the B20, getting ready the policy papers for the G20 this year. The services sector was very, very important and high on the agenda there as well. So what we have to say is that the first thing I say to people, because I'm in contact with many of the companies which are in the services sector at this point, is that if you cannot adapt, then change completely, diversify, find something else, because there are sectors of services which you can adapt, but there are those which you cannot. And at the end, you have to survive. So the most important thing is for those which cannot adapt to find a way to survive and to diversify. So what's very important is that we've been very dedicated in promoting trade and services, and into giving support to the services export. Especially, I think the most important thing at this time is the travel sector and everything which is related to the tourism industry. This is, I think, the sector which, from the services, which has been hit the hardest from this COVID situation. And I think that the crisis for them is yet to come, because a few of them have been able to adapt, but most of them, as it has been mentioned previously, the airlines and some of those which will not be able to work for many months to come, will have a very difficult task in surviving in the period to come. So what we are doing at this moment now is we try to strengthen the trade and investment in the tourism and travel related sectors, which I think is very, very important. And also one of the most important thing is that we are focusing on I think the most important thing at this moment, the SMEs. The SMEs are those in the services sector which have, I think, the biggest challenges to face. And maybe they have suffered also the major consequences due to the fact that mainly certain branches of the services sector, they work partially or not at all. So what is very important is to know that unlike the manufacturing and the production industry, which will start exactly where it had stopped previously before the crisis, for the services sector, they cannot recover as fast, but also they cannot start at the point where they have stopped before the crisis started. So they cannot compensate for the services that were not used or for what they have not sold until now, unlike the manufacturing sector, which will start exactly where it stopped from, of course, if it didn't lose some of the clients or the agreements which they have concluded previously. So what we have as key aspects which are necessary, especially, and which is something which we have detected from the entrepreneurs and from the SMEs, which I think are the key of every and the backbone of every economy worldwide, is that namely they need implementation of new digital technologies in their work processes, which is something they have put very highly on their agenda where it is possible to do so. They need investment in knowledge, especially know-how, and someone to teach them on how to adapt their services and what they have as a final product for the market at the time. And also we need to work on increasing the funding opportunities for them and just find alternative ways of how to help them in these times of crisis. So entrepreneurs which will adapt very quickly to the changes in the customer behaviors and they will act proactively will be the winners in this post-pandemic economic trends, which will be very difficult, but usually we see those which are finding their own niche market in this current market are those who are actually surviving the best. So business transformation is a must for all of the businesses, from the smallest to the biggest. I don't know what can be said to conclude it, because I heard also Asma previously and Alexandra talk about what they have done to advise their clients and the people that they have worked with about how to survive and how, after facing this crisis, just to go on being better, bigger, and just, after the fall down, the only way to go is up. So this is what we should focus on. And I think that the most important thing is that because the private sector faces so many challenges, it is the most important thing to build a functioning system with quality corporate governance, to put in place good crisis management, because this is something that not everyone had in place previous to this pandemic, which has hit the entire world. And after this good crisis management, we should put it highly on the agenda as an international priority. So we should also work on reducing the administrative barriers globally, facilitating the trade, and also we should focus on innovation. Everything which is new will pass on the market better, even in the services area. So these are, I think, the steps towards economic progress, and I think that we should all work together to achieve this, and everyone who thinks that can just get together with us and help us achieve these goals is welcome. So please do so. We are waiting also for input from everyone who thinks that can help, not only for the services areas, but also for the entire industry and all sectors, just to overcome this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danella. This was also very, very helpful indeed. I must share that I really agree with all of your comments, and that's in line with another survey that I have digged into. 90% of CEOs have said that in 5 years of time, we're going to see things shifting, changing fundamentally. So one of the main conclusions of that survey that has been done by McKinsey, which I really recommend that you have a look into, is that how is it going to be changing is if a homework that the entrepreneurs and investors are needing to check with their customers. How are the clients, customers changing their requirements and wishes? So we are now coming to a phase that we need to do this work before we start with our digitalization efforts. And with respect to digitalization, it's used more as a buzzword. We need to find a way to link it to the innovation within this business transformation that you mentioned, Danella, because innovation is not just made, for instance, with respect to offering a totally new product. It can as well be done on a business process. So I would really recommend the startups, especially there was this question from an Italian. So sorry, I can't see the question here now, but just to answer that, how to flourish creativity given COVID, which we are now, it's our main task because we're gonna be facing a new world, mostly agree, is based on this additional homework of looking back to digitalization and innovation and incorporating it in the right way with our models. So Asma, you have been, as an investor, doing some great work on this. You have some concrete examples as an investor. So maybe it's interesting for our investors to hear your examples on this.
No, of course. And I think just following on from what you've just said, businesses, large companies are trying to adapt. And we are going to see big changes over the next few years. I mean, we're seeing big changes now. Particularly with virtual assignments around the world. So not just people working from home, from an internal perspective, that staff are now working remotely, but where you had these large companies sending expats around the world to different countries on different projects. You know, the UN is a major role, the World Bank is major in that. You will now see virtual assignments happening. And that carries with it a whole host of challenges in terms of risk and compliance and, you know, employee benefits and where are they actually based and what country is applicable and what salaries do they pay and what costings do they adapt to that. So there are huge challenges around that companies will need to figure out and adapt to. And I think if startups are, you know, trying to figure out products or ideas or digitalizing anything, then they've got to really address challenges which are difficult for large companies. Because you've got to look at your target market and you've got to look at where can you capitalize at this moment and where are the gaps that exist. So all countries across the world, so not necessarily something that is needed in your own country, but to really truly scale what is needed in other countries and what could work in you know, across the board. So as an example, you know, to a lot of this ID checking, checking people's identification, security checking, has been done in person for many countries because people don't have sort of advanced platforms or digital solutions. now is going to have to obviously rapidly change as we go past COVID. And so I've invested in a technology product where the startup company has produced technology that allows people to do identifications online. And this is very much applicable to what the government probably needs, and not governments just in the UK, but governments across the world, where they can go online, they can subscribe to a product, and they can allow candidates who then, if the government body actually needs to check on identities, then these people can actually use that product to be able to identify themselves. So products like that, I think, will do well in the future. And then additionally, if you look at startups, right, so every investor looks at scalability and sustainability as a key element of whether they're going to invest in a company or not. So my take on when I'm assessing a business and any due diligence that we carry out is about, well, what is it that's on offer? And now when I'm looking at startup companies, I wonder, well, how are you going to scale? Because if you are at a stage where you are generating revenue, or whichever situation or whichever stage you're at, what's the next stage? How do you then go and establish in another country? How do you then scale and become global? And because the challenge is going to be, are you then going to be able to relocate? Are you going to be able to find the staff that want to relocate to another country? So again, I've invested in a company that is actually making global expansion much easier. And so without people having to travel, without the need to go abroad. So thinking ahead, thinking about the future, how do you globalize and how do you really stand out and differentiate yourself, and how can you ease that process? And the other challenge people have been finding is banking systems. So banks around the world, you have to take in your identity documents, they want to meet you in person, security checks, etc. So we've been looking at solutions on how do you then, when you're setting up in another country, as part of that globalization solution, how can you help people find banking solutions to open bank accounts so they can conduct business in a fast, efficient manner? And yeah, so I've actually been busy investing in companies that are going to solve those problems, which I have seen clients actually find difficult. So whether you're super rich, ultra high net worth, who wants to relocate to another country, their first challenge has always been, well, where do we open our bank account? Right? And if anybody knows the banking industry, no matter how wealthy you are or how much impact you can have, getting a bank account open is one of the biggest challenges. So whoever can ease that process for you is actually going to be a winner in that situation. And then, so that's obviously the high net worth, but then you look at a corporate client. If you can ease the identification process of recruiting somebody on an assignment anywhere in the world, you can solve their payroll and their local benefit solutions. That corporate client, not just that corporate client, but every corporate is probably going to want a solution like that. So those are the things and the tips that I could give, that if people are looking for solutions, look at the target audience that you're trying to look at and find or create ideas and products that are going to solve the problem, that are actually going to be used and look at, I think personally, if I look at everything with my own kind of head in the service industry as to what is it from a legal perspective that clients ask me, on a day-to-day basis. And these last 6 months have been the biggest learning curve in terms of what do we need to do to make things easier for businesses in the future. So my takeaway from this would be that, yes, we've talked about pivoting, but we've also talked about coming up with fresh ideas and solutions and slightly adapting what you have to cater for the tomorrow rather than today.
Denise, I would just like to add one point. This is a very big topic, but I think when we really think on the global picture and think of everything, we need to go back and look at education, how education is done today, what is taught in the classroom, and start at a very young age already to teach our children what agility means and problem solving. Because I think the Western world, at least the education system, is very outdated. It's very old school. It doesn't work in the world we live in today. So that's my last 5 cents to that.
Wonderful, very well.
I would like to add to that on this education and training point. It's something that during the lockdown, I don't know if it was done in a lot of countries, but certainly yes, all the professors, teachers had to train children through a screen which was not something common for them. And at the beginning, they were all thinking it will not be possible and how they could organize that. And finally, it worked very well, which means now in the future, of course, it will be necessary to continue either for children, but also for continuous training for other people who want to be trained to do it online, not only on a physical in the classroom and so on. And even for children, you have some children who can be ill at home or not having the possibility in certain countries where you have schools which are far away. We could develop this type of activity, giving laptops to children and they can work from home. And it's a point which is extremely important because that's allow people to keep in touch, first of all, but also to be able to be educated in a proper way. And it's true also for people who already are on having a job. If they want to continue to be trained, they can do it online. And it was very slow, at least in France. We were talking a lot about MOOC, but it was not common at all to be used in France. But during the lockdown, people were obliged to do it, were forced to do it. And what was extremely slow to change, this crisis obliged us to change, and it's very important. It's another comment I would like to come back to your first comment about customers, to keep the existing customers, to keep contact with them. Also, even in a standard world, it's something we've done during the crisis, but we need to continue. Because even of visiting a customer which is in south of France, for instance, you have to travel to go there to spend an hour with him. We can just do it online. And during this period, we had all the Zoom, team, and all GoToMeeting and so on, which were used by everyone. In our company, we were using it already before. When we had a prospect, the first thing before visiting him was to have an online contact, which was for us an opening. But it's not true for everywhere, and it's something that we have to push, and certainly a lot of people discovered.
So if I may ask this question, which given your remarks, Mary and Alex, that comes to my mind, you have really reflected on the value and importance of trust building, right? So like, and Asma, you have reflected on the importance of building the right models so we can create enough of financial stamina within companies. So like, is there a way to do this systemization together with personalization? Does COVID give us some opportunities which we haven't figured out or are in the process of figuring out given these two?
Tough question. I think the trust side is definitely important. And I would look at it from the perspective of if a company is looking at innovating and creating a new business model or trying to adapt or pivot, I think if they can create a trust with a potential investor and build some kind of a relationship, then I think the two can go hand in hand with the support of the business model and creating something that can actually respond to or address gaps in the market that are happening at the moment. But trust is extremely important with investors, and quite all too often, we see startups, and as part of WBAF, we have a lot of startups that come to the network seeking investment. And one of the key areas that I think that time and time again that we keep telling people is that you've got to build a trust relationship. I think it's really difficult to come in with an idea or a suggestion or a product and then to expect investors to actually believe in that. And whilst we're looking at trust across the board in any area of work that we do or any area that we are within, I think it's really important that relationship building, because that goes a long way. It stays with you forever. It doesn't actually break. and then everything else can be worked out. So even if, you know, I've seen companies where I've liked the people so much that I've invested time and energy into those people to help them adapt and to figure out a solution that I've worked with to be able to get them to the stage that they needed to. And on the other hand, you'll see people with a great, fantastic idea, but actually the people are difficult to work with, to build a relationship with, or to establish that level of trust. And that is a much harder fix. So I think both go together, but the trust element is paramount.
Thank you. Daniela, might you have some additional or other points that you might want to reflect on? You are muted.
Thank you. There was some phonia, so I tried to prevent it. Thank you, Dennis. What I would just like to add for the end is that what I would say for everyone who is in the startups would be, first of all, try to adapt. Second of all, you should try to innovate. And third, diversify. It is most important, I think, to try to combine. If you cannot adapt, then try to diversify. Try to take on some action which you think that can help your business or to help your business plan so that you can become better, and just try to focus on what can achieve success. Of course, as you know, the digital tools, the use of digital tools, the IT sectors are part of the services area, which are doing quite well in this crisis. Also, we have the health services, which are doing also quite well. And everything which is related to the health industry and the sports industry is doing, let's say, well in this crisis. And I think the third one would be the finances and the insurance. So if you cannot adapt as quickly as you can so that you can overcome this crisis, just try to innovate within your business and try to diversify with an activity which can help you survive. So that would be the outcome.
If I may add to that, to your key points of adapt, innovate, and diversify, I think when these three are the main focus, then comes the second priority, at least I've seen in my business as well. Aggregate, optimize resources, and bring more efficiency. So, and to make that happen, there's going to be more and more focus on connectivity. And I think this COVID has given us an interesting chance to be more connected than ever, so long as we have the internet, right?
Exactly.
That could be a point. Even in France, you have certain region when you are in contact with people, even by phone, they say, "Oh, hold on a minute, I have to go in the back of my garden because from my office I cannot listen you, or I don't have good connection." And it has been true with internet. You have certain region still where connection are not so good.
Mary, that brings to my mind, you have really reflected on some of the social problems as well in your keynote, in your speech. And maybe one of the lessons from COVID is, as Alex, we know from family business governance work as well, to be prepared, right? Third generation loses the wealth because they're not prepared. So could I get your points with respect to preparedness in a world there's so much uncertainty, as we don't know yet what to get prepared for? So
I would say that first, for an entrepreneur, he has always to anticipate and to look at what could happen, not only with a big crisis of that one, it could be something which is less strong, but even you have always to think out of the box, as Asma mentioned that at the beginning, and it's extremely important. We spoke about training, but when you look at certain activities like people or agency for office agencies or lease agency, you have also Mythic, which is a great today. It's a great tool that a lot of people are using, even young people. In the past, you had some physical agencies where people were going, it was not really working, but now it's something which has been extended. it's a type of activity which is allowed thanks to digitalization. It's true when you look for an apartment today, you look on the internet. So with standard agencies, maybe you use them to visit an apartment, but not to buy or to rent an apartment. First thing you look on the internet. And for a lot of business, it's the same. So people have to be really adaptive. They need really to look out of the box. And innovation is key for any type of business. Don't stay because you are in your comfort zone. You have always to think, what could I do to do it in a better way and to be more efficient?
I think the comfort zone is very true. But I think as entrepreneurs, it's a given that you have to step out of your comfort zone. But I think when it comes to preparedness, the way you put it, Denise, I always tell my teams, we have a plan A, but we need to have a plan B, plan C, and a plan D, because how often does plan A go as planned? So at least you have some kind of frameworks around worst case scenarios, in between scenarios, which again leads to agility and adaptability, right? Adaptiveness. So yeah, have a plan A, B through the alphabet, and then you'll be much better prepared than someone who only goes for a plan A.
I'd also just add that when people are innovating, innovate with purpose and meaning. There has to be purpose at the end of it, and not just innovate because everyone else is doing it, not digitalizing just because everyone else is going that way. There has to be a need and there has to be an end, purpose to this. So that's my message, I think, to everyone.
If I may add to that, I think research has become more important for both investors and entrepreneurs, because I see that for many of the functions or many of the processes, there's already a digital solution. That's part of the digitalization puzzle, or the kind of the innovation period that we've been going through. So I'd really suggest a lot of research before taking next steps. Now, I think we are open now to our questions from our audience. So I'm going through our list. Thank you so much again for joining us. I would now welcome you to share some more of your questions here so I can address it. Like if you could say for whom or in general, I'd be very happy. I see some remarks. Let me see if I'm missing any questions from our audience. Yes, I see a question from Concetta Spitaleri. He's an Italian entrepreneur living in Brussels and owns a company that sells tailor-made, long-lasting floral decos. How do you digitalize creativity, and to which extent is this possible? Which one of you might like to address this question?
Sorry, Denise, I didn't hear that question very well.
Sure. Me too.
Sure. I'll repeat. Concetta, sorry if I'm saying your name in the wrong way, but he's an Italian entrepreneur living in Brussels and owns a company that sells tailor-made, long-lasting floral decos. And he asked how to digitalize creativity and to which extent is this possible?
I think it's a very creativity. I mean, it's an industry that's been hit hard, but I think the way that you do it is you have to go online with your product. You have to display your product in different ways. And if you look at the luxury brand industry as an example, right? All branding, when you look at Chanel, Hermes, all the biggest brands in the world, they've stopped production because no one's buying their products. But when you look at the online secondhand industry for luxury brands, it's thriving. And why is that the case? Because those prices haven't dropped, but it's because they are actually innovating. They're on Instagram, they're on social media, They are presenting themselves in ways, they're making everything look so much better. And I think if the floral industry, you can have displays in many different ways and you can innovate, you can present yourself in many ways. And I personally would think you'd find more customers going down that route than you would if you were, you know, in one place, because suddenly you have an audience around the world.
I agree with Asma, and I think when someone sets up a website or whatever to kind of promote their work, I think again it's a key element to know your client and whom you're targeting it towards, because the moment you know who the buyer, potential buyer is, what mindset they have, what needs they have, you can tailor your language, your photos, your videos so much more towards that clientele, and it becomes so much more valuable and yeah.
Even to discuss about the design of a new product, it can be done online. And of course, we should not think that we will work only online and we will work only from home. We need to meet people, and social activity, it's extremely important. But a mix of both, we could be much more efficient. If we take a city like Paris or London or New York, where it's extremely difficult to circulate and to use common transport and so on, we lose a lot of time being in a car, being in a metro, to jump from one meeting to another one. Having the possibility to have all those a part of those meetings online, we save time. And we can be more efficient. We can also have meetings which are shorter, because quite often when you have meetings, and it's mainly more true for men, they have long meetings, talking for nothing, taking time, staying in a meeting room until 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, and then having dinner together and so. But it can be done once per month or quarter, but not so often. And we could save time, a lot of time, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. We have 2 more questions that I'd like to address. This one is from Celia Gates. Thank you, Celia. One of us has mentioned 3 years, another many months. Does anyone have thoughts on how long this will be our new normality, or when we may return to a more regular or more profitable way of life?
I think if we had the answer, we will become very rich. It's like forecasting what happens. I'm not sure anybody knows. What is said in France, when during the lockdown, we were all talking about, yes, 2-3 years to recover. And they are still talking about that for aerospace industry due to travels and so on. But recently, they are speaking about shorter term, because in fact, when people went out, it was a bit faster than expected. If we don't have a second wave, which nobody knows, because it seems to restart in different countries. If we don't have, but anyway, I don't think we will have lockdown as or so formal as we had for the first wave. We should restart faster and in a more creative way. It's my personal feeling, but maybe Asma could have another view.
I mean, I think, well, I don't know, anybody knows our Prime Minister Bojo, Boris Johnson. His view, if anybody believes his view, is that we will all go back to normal in December, before Christmas.
Oh, you are lucky.
But obviously, beyond that, I think my personal view, when I talk to clients, I talk to people, generally we think, yes, we're starting to ease back to normal, but it doesn't feel like normal. I feel like there could probably be another 12 to 24 months before we can actually start to feel confident in the way that we used to previously. And I think there needs to be a vaccine, some kind of, some solution to this virus before people are completely confident. But the economy has started to, sort of go back to normality. Obviously not 100%, to some level of percentage. I think we will see the repercussions of what's happened probably in the next 12 months. But there is no answer. I'm afraid I personally, I wish I had the answer, but I have no idea. But this is, from hearsay and what I hear around me, that's what people are saying. The next 2 years will be pretty tough.
I don't think we will go back to normal the way we used to know it. And I think that is a good thing. I think that my hopes are that we will really learn from this crisis. And yes, it will be, I do think there will be a second wave coming. We've seen it in Israel and Portugal, that like small hubs, because people, I think, are just so excited to be able to hug each other. Such a physical gesture, such a innate human drive and for hugs, for physical touch. But I do think and hope that people will realize that the new normal in business, the way we had it, it will be detrimental. We see it now. We need to come out of this stronger and realize that the way we used to think, the way we used to lead does not work.
It's a shame, to be honest, because I actually miss that human connectivity of being able to have a coffee with somebody, sit and have a lunch with someone, to be able to have a conversation, to get to know them. That's how you build trust, right? And that's how you build long life relationships. And I was just saying to Denise before we got on, I've heard about her, I've chatted to her, we've had lots of contact, but I've never met her. and this COVID has obviously made things worse this year, but you can't replace. I've met people like Lucy and various other WBAF members, and Rena, and it makes a difference because you met them and you don't forget them. You remember them forever and they stay in your mind. So if anything, we're missing that human contact, and as humans, we need that in our lives. So I, would be disappointed if we can't get that back in the future. And we all want to meet, and I think these conferences are great opportunities to network and find people that are like-minded and grow your friendships. Forget about networks or business. The friendships that come out of them are extremely valuable.
You're actually very lucky, thanks to our chairman, Barbars Bey. We want to recognize you on that here, that you have given us such a strong community, that we have so many friends first, right? Thank you, chairman. And I see one question here from our dear friend Norris, and I believe Monique has replied it in a way, but I'll give the answer to you as well. And Norris has asked to the panel, what's the one important thing that we overlook when trying to adapt or reinvent a business? And if I may share also, Monique has made a note, all service channels can be focused on your customer needs and expectations. Start with setting up customer journeys to find the real problem and write solutions with your target group. This is really often over-missed, at least in my experience building a company. So, but I would like to give the word to you as well. What is, in your eyes, the one thing that we overlook?
Okay, I just saw one question, the last one, I think. So it was, if you cannot adapt, how can you innovate and diversify to another activity? So it's very important what the market needs are at the moment. So what we have had lately, and I think maybe this will be also the answer to the Italian entrepreneurs, people are now looking, the market is now looking for safety. So this is something which should be offered, and this is something which should be diversified. You should diversify to the needs of the market. Whatever the market needs, this is what you need to diversify to. So generally what the market needs is products or services which are safe. For the Italian entrepreneur which makes flower arrangements, the need for the market now is actually to have something which is sanitized, something which is germ-free. Everyone needs something healthy in their life, and they need to be safe when they buy it, whether it's online or through other channels available. So this is what we should do. If you cannot adapt using the digital tools which are available, you should just try to find a niche market within your market, or diversify to a completely different market, which is something maybe not even compatible with what you know or with what you are doing at the time, so that you can save your business activity and that you can survive this period in order to continue when this passes, whether it will be in 12, 24 months or even more.
And I'd like, actually, following on from that comment, just to say, we all remember Kodak and what happened to Kodak? Now,
exactly.
If Kodak diversified and created Instagram, just imagine where they would have been today. So I agree with you completely. Diversification is absolutely key, and adapting to the needs of tomorrow rather than what you're used to. And the other thing I would say about adapting is network. So whilst we're all kind of on at the WBAF network, I think the power of networks can't be underestimated. And with the level of support that you can get within a community of each other, and the level of skills and the different capabilities that people have within it. So people, anyone who has a need, on the one hand, and true examples is being part of networks helps you find and define solutions to deliver services to your clients as well. So, what I don't know, somebody else may know in another country, they connect you to somebody else, and suddenly the ecosystem starts to work for itself. And that's really where you want to be, to create a powerful network of people that actually help solve solutions, more centrally. And that's when I think it becomes really successful.
Thank you very much. I checked, I think we have answered some of these questions, if not all. We have only 9 minutes. Therefore, I would really like to ask you for your concluding remarks and your key takeaways. I have much enjoyed being with you, and I thank you. And I also thank to all those that are watching us either on YouTube or have joined our Zoom call or will be watching later on. We are here to build from anew, right? So it's a pleasure that we have this opportunity now to renew and to recreate. And I give the word to you, my dear panelists and speakers, for your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Denise. I'm very, very grateful to be on this panel. I'd like to thank Baybars and yourself as well for welcoming us to today's discussion. It's been really enjoyable, and I've enjoyed meeting all the panelists and hearing about all the questions as well. I think the one final comment that I would make, and again, I have this investor hat on, and a lot of the questions that I've had over the last 6 months is about how do we salvage our companies and how do we get past this difficult time. And we've heard so many times people talk about cash is king and preserving cash and being able to manage our cash flows with little investment and little opportunity to be able to take our businesses to the next level. And what I would say is companies really need to reassess, where they are, what they're doing, look at their operations and have an audit. Have an audit process, look through everything and look at where they can preserve their business and maybe talk to different people in their networks and see how they can diversify, how they can adapt to the changing environment, and then try and come up with new solutions where they can seek advice. Again, it comes down to the point of a network like this. Go to people in a network like this and talk to them about your ideas and suggestions and see if you can find that help. And at some point, you may even find the opportunity for investment, because if you're not talking to people indirectly about how to help you solve problems without this sort of hat on with, I need money, you're off-putting your investors immediately. Start talking to them like humans and talk to them to build a relationship. And maybe along the journey, you will find what it is that you're looking for.
Very well summarized, Asma. I mean, there's not much to add to that, actually. I would like to thank Denise as well, and Baybars and Malak for organizing this, and you lovely ladies. It has been a pleasure. And yes, I mean, I could just summarize by saying we need to stay agile. We need to we need to be able to adapt, use this time to slow down for a second, do that audit that Asma was talking about, assess, take decisions, come up with a plan A, B, C, and act upon it. Start implementing. Not everything at once. I understand that a lot of businesses have problems with the cash flow right now. then take the time, start implementing a few things at a time. So you have a process going once we slowly come out of this.
I really want to thank Denise, of course, for this absolute efficient and extremely good moderation. And I'm very happy that I meet you virtually, and I'm waiting to meet you again in Istanbul or somewhere else. As it has been said, WBAF is a great network, and we need to be supportive, all of us, and we need also to be open enough. And when we have problems, the best way is to talk about it and to look for help. We are facing a big challenge, of course, because we can think about innovation, we can think about adapting our work process and so on, but it's not so easy. And for certain people, it's more difficult than for others. But as said, for our association, alone we are invisible and together we are invincible. It's true for FCEM, but I think it's true also for WBAF. It's a strong network, and we need to take that opportunity to develop our own business, but also to help the others. And we can get ideas from talking in Istanbul with different people. I was thinking, okay, oh, they do that. It was somebody from Pakistan or India, I don't remember. I said, why not doing it in France? But at that time, I was busy with other things. And but now I'm thinking, despite my business in numerical simulation, it's future business as well, because it's in a digitalization world. But I was thinking it could be something to think later on, but later on, maybe it's now. So don't miss any opportunity when you talk to people, and when you get an idea, just take it and do it. Be agile.
Thank you. Well, at the end, I would actually like to just conclude this panel previously before I give the last word to Denise as our host today. I think that we heard many things which are very important, but for the last thing which I would have to say is something which actually Mary noted just a few minutes ago, the international networking. We have seen people salvage themselves, rescue themselves from this crisis in starting something new and something innovative, which they have actually learned from a colleague in their network. So meaning there are so many solutions to our problems, which someone has already implemented in their own business, in their own startup, in their own business plan, which most of us in other countries are unaware of. So I think that this should be something to devote ourselves in the next few months. Just increase your network, communicate with your international partners and connections as much as you can. Try to learn what people are doing in that area of expertise or in that sector you're in other countries, and how they have helped themselves adapt or just diversify in their own sectors, which are very similar to yours. So this would be, I think, a very good solution, because people are being innovative as we speak. People are finding solutions as we speak, but we are just maybe not aware of all of them. So you should connect, you should communicate, and you should build trust as well, as mentioned previously. So thank you.
That's great. Just one question before we go to you, Denise. Sorry, not question, one comment. I just saw somebody write in the chat box that 60% of rural African women are listening to this webinar. And just one thing I wanted to say to them is about believing in themselves and what they want to achieve. Because once upon a time, 20 years ago, when I first started out in the industry, I mean, I was once a startup myself. I set up a company many years ago, but as a single person, as a female as well, with no support, nothing, and I've got a very complicated background, but no money whatsoever. Now, being in a situation where you don't know where to go, you have no finances, you don't have resources, but you just have your mind and your skills and your talent, and that's all you can rely on. And I was up against trying to win clients for this new business that I had with no staff, but just me. And I went to a conference where I met somebody in a networking conference who was the CEO of one of the largest oil and gas companies in the world. It's one of the largest major brand, which I won't name on here. And I was absolutely fearful with my life to talk to this person, right? We had a conversation. They had a problem he was talking about in his industry. We talked about it high level, and I went away. Then I found out that he actually had a contract with another company that I had already worked with when I was working for somebody as an employee. And through whatever, you know, to cut a long story short, I actually met with them again through some other contact. Now, they were having a problem because the law was changing in the UK, and they were having challenges setting up their operations here because they were very small in the UK, but large everywhere else around the world. I personally was up against the big 4 consulting firms, plus the 2 magic circle firms to try and win their work. This is multi-million-dollar account, and there's me by myself, right, pitching to this client to win their work. I would never imagine in my wildest dreams at that age, right, about 15 years ago, that I would actually be able to achieve that success. So all those women out there that are thinking that they want to go to somebody, they want to achieve something, they want to pitch their work, everything is possible. There is nothing that is impossible. If you have a dream and if you want to live it and you want to have a vision and you want to accomplish it, you have to go and do it. Your passion will speak for itself. That's what I have to say.
Actually, I'm in lots of words because you've said it so nicely, Asma, and you have put a concrete example. You have really inspired us with what you have done. I found the experience and the insights of each and every panelist and our speaker extremely insightful and helpful and also inspiring. And inspiration is actually what we need right now to rebuild ourselves and our businesses and our work going forward. I would only add to your points that it's not the time to look into the problem. It's more the time to look into the creative solution. And it's more the time to do the research and the networking, and it's more time to do the collaboration, and it's more time to do the connectivity. So it's time to change our paradigms. It's time to leave our old systems and ways of doing business behind. And it's a crucial, precious time. It is a very time to build something new, which is exciting and inspiring for the women in Africa, for the women in Turkey, for the men in everywhere. So it's time to rebuild and enjoy. So thank you very much for all your remarks, and I'm looking forward to our next get together. Malak, dear chairman and chairwoman Swati, for the next webinars to listen this time. Thank you very much all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.